Okay then, chef. So today we're going to be looking at making a beef bourguignon, a braised beef bourguignon. So we know that braising is done in the oven, and it's done with larger cuts of tougher meat, and it's braised at a lower temperature in an oven for a longer period of time, so that it breaks down those tissues and makes the meat really tender and takes on all those flavours that we're going to put into that pan. Traditionally, a French dish. Came around in about the 19th century. It's not a very old dish, although a lot of people seem to think it is. It was primarily done with legs of lamb, rabbit, and often done with leftover meat as well. But has become a more popular, trendy dish in recent years. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing today. So our ingredients for today: I've got some braising beef, okay, some smoked bacon, some mushrooms, some close cut mushrooms. I've got some shallots, or if you can get them, some mini silver skinned onions, okay. I've got a whole onion, I've got a beef stock pot, I've got some bay leaf, some thyme, a whole clove of garlic, and a bottle of red wine, okay. So that's a Merlot I'm using, but you can use whichever type of wine you want. So what I'm going to start to do is I'm just going to start to cut my meat up, and again, we're not going too small. We do want these in quite large pieces, okay. As they cook, they will go down to about half the size of what they are, okay. So nice big chunky pieces. Again, you don't need to worry too much about the fat that's on this, because it is going to cook down and render down really nicely in that sauce and give us some really good flavour. What we're going to do is, once we've diced this all up, we're going to brown this off in a nice hot pan with a little bit of olive oil. Okay, so there we go. We've diced our meat, got our meat ready, and we're going to get our pan ready now. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to get our pan nice and hot, and it's really important that we get that pan red hot, because we're going to be putting large pieces of cold meat into that pan. What we don't want is the pan temperature to drop. Okay, because what we'll end up doing is stewing, is boiling the meat. So what we want is to get a nice red hot pan. We're going to get plenty of colour. We're going to really caramelise that up. Okay, so that's getting nice and hot now. We're just going to add some oil into that pan. Okay, nice drizzle of oil. Okay, get that nice and hot again. And then once that's ready, we're going to start lowering in our meat, a couple of pieces at a time. Again, you don't want to just chuck it all in at once. Okay, and if you want to, you can even do it in 2 batches, which would make it even easier to do, so that you're not overloading that pan. It's really important that we don't want to overload that pan. So we're just going to let that brown off now and get that really hot. There we go. It's browned off really nicely on one side, so you're supposed to turn that over now. Okay, and get the other side of that, the same caramelisation. Really important that we get that colour on, so that it's got that colour before it gets covered in liquid and cooked in the oven in that liquid. Okay, so again, a couple more minutes on that side, and then we'll do the last bit of the meat that we've got left. Okay, so I've sealed off all my beef now, and I've just put that in a cast iron pot, a braising tin, or if you've got a Pyrex dish or anything like that, that's what you're going to want to do. Anything that's oven proof that you're going to be putting in the oven. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to chop my onion and get that cooked off in the pan that I've just sealed off all of that beef in, and that's just going to add a load of flavour to the base of our sauce by putting that onion in there. Going to really help cook down, and as it cooks down, it'll break down, the onions will break down, and that'll help to start thickening that sauce, so you won't need as much flour in there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to finely chop my onions, so I'm going to brunoise those down. And then, like I said, what we're going to do with those is we're going to put those in our pan that we've sealed our meat top in. Again, get in there, and we're just going to slowly sweat them down and get those caramelised off, get those nicely cooked down, and they're going to go into our pan with our beef. Okay, so now those onions are caramelised down a bit, what I've done is I've put my garlic in, and I've put my garlic in, I've just cut it in half and left it in like that so it's got the skins on. And what'll happen is that I'll roast down, that'll braise down nicely, keep it nice and sweet, rather than pureeing it down and really grinding it down. Leave it whole like that, it makes it sweeter, it's going to give it more aromats throughout the dish rather than being too strong, okay? You can always take it out later on as well, okay? Okay, so they've all sweated down now, okay? What we're going to do now is just add a little bit of flour just to absorb the fat that's in that pan. That's going to make a little bit of a roux that's going to help thicken our sauce as well as the onions. Okay, you don't need to go too mad with your flour, okay? It's just enough just to absorb any excess grease that's in there, okay? And just work that round. There we go. Okay, so, I'm going to touch more. And there we go, that's done. So, what am I going to add next? I'm going to add my red wine. So I've got a full bottle of red wine, so 750 mils, and that's going to go in there. Okay, and just work that in. And just let that come to the boil. Okay, so that's just starting to bubble now. What I'm going to add into there now, I'm going to add my aromats. So I'm going to add a little bit of thyme. Okay, I've got a little bit of rosemary. I like rosemary in mine, so it's up to you whether you put that in. And I've got some bay leaf that's just gone in there as well. So I've got some bay leaf in there. I'm also going to put in a nice slice of thick bacon in there as well that I've got from my packet. Okay, that's just going to help infuse a bit more flavour into there as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tip in my red wine into my beef pan. And I've got all my onions, my garlic, my thyme, I've got rosemary, my garlic, everything in there. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that on the stove and I'm going to let that reduce down by half. Okay, so that's going to reduce down by half before we do anything else to it. Okay, so that's reduced down by half now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add my stock to it. So I've got one stock pot that I'm just going to put in like so. Work that in. And I've got one that I've mixed into 600 mils of boiling water as well, which is going to go in there. Just work that around. Okay, there we go, make sure that's all mixed through. And what we're going to do now is we're going to put that into the oven with a lid on for about 2.5 to 3 hours. We'll check it at 2 hours just to see how it is and see how tender that meat is and see if it needs another half hour or so. Okay, so lid on, and then it's going to go straight into the oven. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at making the garnish for our beef bourguignon. And the garnish for our beef bourguignon is a sauté of bacon, some shallots. I'm using some small shallots, so I've got some baby shallots. Again, like I said, you could use some silver skinned onions, but I'm going to use some shallots and some close cut mushrooms. Again, you can use any type, chestnut mushrooms or wild mushrooms, it's entirely up to you. I'm just going to go with some close cut mushrooms that I've quartered today. Okay, so I'm getting my pan nice and hot. Just going to add a small drizzle of oil for the bacon. You shouldn't need too much because obviously the bacon's got fat on anyway. So in that goes. So again, I've just cut that bacon piece that I had into relatively bite-sized pieces, maybe a bit smaller than that. And again, we're just going to get that fried off first before we do anything else. So we get this fried down, and once we've got this fried down, we're going to take this bacon out of this, drain off any excess fat from the bacon, and then we're going to saute our onions first in the pan and then our mushrooms. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to saute off my my onions. So again, a little bit of oil, nice clean hot pan, and there you go. So a little bit of seasoning to those, a little bit of pepper, and a little bit of salt. And just let them just work around, start to fry down nice and carefully. So in our pan that we've cooked our bacon in, I've just taken that out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fry off my my mushrooms in that pan now. Okay, so we're getting all that flavour from all the different components working together. So then the light on these, they don't take long to cook. Just keep moving them around. If you need to, you can also add a drop of butter into them as well. Again, just another butter in there. Got our onions starting to cook down really nicely there. Okay, so my mushrooms are nearly cooked, my onions are done, and my bacon's all cooked, so now we're going to incorporate them all together. Okay, so onions, my bacon, give that a good mix. And this will go over the top of your dish. Okay, so all I'm going to do now with that, just finish that with a nice big handful of chopped parsley. Okay, just to give it a bit of colour, as it is going to be part of our garnish. Okay, and that just gets spooned over the top of our beef bourguignon when we come to plate up in a minute. Okay, so we're now at a point where we need to plate up our beef bourguignon. It's come out of the oven after 2 hours, and that's nice and tender. That meat is just falling apart. We've got our bourguignon garnish that we've got there. Okay, so now we're going to plate up. I've just got a nice quenelle of mashed potato that I'm going to serve with this. Okay, so again, we just lift the beef out, being careful not to break it up because it is tender. Just give that plate a quick wipe. Okay, one more piece of beef on there. Okay, so we've got a nice amount of beef on there. I'm just going to finish that off with a little bit of our garnish that we've got here. And this is what makes the dish really, it's this addition of the extra mushrooms and onions and the bacon in there. Okay, and there you go. As you can see, you've got a lovely portion of beef bourguignon with creamed potatoes, finished off with a bourguignon garnish.